And we're back again, just like that. What's up, guys? Everyone, welcome back to the channel. And welcome back to another video. Captain Cody Davis sitting down to hang out with you guys for another one here. And as far as I'm concerned, we got a pretty awesome video for you guys here. Even though there's going to be absolutely no fish catches, no big hook sets, really no fishing content at all. We're just going to be talking about really what just took place out here on my favorite lake in the country, Lake Okeechobee. And when I say it's fresh in my mind, I literally just walked in the front door from driving back home from watching the weigh-in over at Roland Martin's Marine Center, where Scott Martin ended up taking home the win. Not only taking home the win in the Bassmaster Open, but ended up breaking really what turned out to be all kinds of different records out here on Lake Okeechobee with a 3-day total of 90 pounds and 6 ounces, which no matter how you look at it, no matter how you break it up, it's an average of 30 pounds a day, and just phenomenal week for him. And we're going to kind of break it down as to not only what made, I almost said what made the win more special, which we'll get into that as well, but really what I think made the win so much more impressive in a weird way when we get into it. So any of you that watched, my me and my buddy Matt Weeda and Nick Hoining did a prediction video on how we thought this Bassmaster Open was going to go and take place, what the record weight was going to be, which I said 69 pounds wins it, which I was totally off, which always happens, which is fine. And we basically swung and completely missed. All of our predictions were totally off. The only thing kind of close I got was I predicted, I picked Brandon McMillan to be one of the guys to win the event, and he ended up in 10th place. So I wasn't too far off, but I think we talked about Tharp in there, saying that, again, us being just naive idiots anymore. I think we said that he was going to try and force that punching bite, because those of you that don't know, Randall was and still is, a big stick, obviously on the Elite Series and his whole career. But when it came to fishing Okeechobee, this was his bread and butter. He not only did he do very well down here, but he just loved fishing down here. He loved the style that you approach the lake with. And for years, he was the man. He was one of the top sticks on Okeechobee, but he hadn't been out here in a while. So one of the reasons I didn't really pick him, but you guys heard me kind of in that video almost stutter, like he's an Elite Series angler. Obviously, he went over and fished Major League Fishing there for a while, but he's one of the top anglers in the game. Like, for us to think that he's going to just try and push that punching bite and not adapt and adjust, it was just kind of stupid on our end, which is what he did. And he admitted, he said, I really wanted to catch him punching, but the way the lake's setting up and set up, you just can't win an event doing that. And he ended up in 3rd place with just over 68 pounds, which again is nothing shabby at all. Brandon ended up with 53. He ended up in 10th place. Young man Tucker ended up in 2nd with just over 68 also. So no matter how you chop it up, the weights were very good, on the lake. So it was great to see, but then to see Scott bring it home with over 90 pounds was, again, I said 69, so I was off by a mere, 20 pounds or so. Crazy. But, what was really cool is, something cool to see is, although the photos show different, these guys, the playing field was much bigger than anticipated. Yes, there were lots of boats stacked on top of each other, but in this event, there was like 230 boats or something crazy like that. And really, when it comes down to it, when you talk Lake Okeechobee, when you talk Florida, any fishery in Florida, they always say, if you're not around the boats, you're not around the fish. And it's even more so on Lake Okeechobee, and it's even more so on Lake Okeechobee with the state the lake is in. But it's something that has always kind of been like that. And I feel like now with the spraying and the high water and the way that the lake is being diminished, we kind of focus on that more, and it's almost like a running joke how there's only 3 places left in the lake to fish. And this week didn't really show that um, in a strange way. I mean, if you look at the top 10 today, obviously we didn't have live cameras on everybody because there was 240 boats. But when they narrowed it down to the top 10, these guys were totally spread out. You had a couple in the canal, you had 2 down in South Bay, you had where Scott was in the Harney Pond area. You had some people in Tin House, some people up around Buckhead. I mean, they were relatively spread out as opposed to 10 boats. Now, obviously, everyone saw the photos and the footage, both from the Toyota Series and from this Bass Open, of just the hordes and hordes of boats. But that's just because these were some of the areas that you could just roll through and get bit. And if you roll through there and get bit, you're going to probably go back there. On top of that, when you have, say, in that one area the first day, there was literally 80 boats in let's call it a 40 to 60 acre area. And that's not exaggerated even to the least bit. I mean, these guys were stacked on top of each other. But call it however you want. 80 boats is insane. But when you roll through there in practice and there's 10 boats in that spot, obviously you're going to lay your boat down and you're going to fish calmer. You're going to fish slower, and you're going to give that area more time for you to get bit just because you see some of your competition around there. Whereas if you lay down in an area that looks good but there's no one there, you might not give it the time of day that it really needs, or that you should, to really fish out an area to see if you actually get bit. You might feel like, why is no one here? If there were fish here, there's no one here. You might flip a Senko around, throw a big easy, flip a mat, and then say, I'm not getting bit, and haul ass. Whereas if you lay down in the Dias Ditch area and there's 30 people and they're throwing vibrating jigs, you'll pick up a vibrating jig and cast. And as you're fishing, you're constantly scanning, watching to see if anyone else is catching anything. And then before you know it, you've been in there for 25 to 30 minutes. You end up catching a fish or two, and now you have confidence and you start dialing that area in. And I think that's what's been happening on this lake as a whole, really for the last few years. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, listen, the last thing I want to do is get on here and make it seem like Lake Okeechobee is in tip-top shape and perfect, because it's not. Okay, and I know I'm going to get a lot of heat from people saying, stop saying the lake fish is good and this and that, which is a whole other subject. But the lake does need help, for sure. And that's one thing I want to thank all of the guys that made the top 10. In some way, shape, or form, they use their stage time to elaborate on how we need to protect this place. And especially Scott, like, even during live, I was watching, glued to it, and he would stop and say, like, I know this looks good on paper. It does. And him breaking this record right now does not help our case whatsoever at saving this place, but that's not his fault. But even when he was on that high of catching the biggest bags of fish he's ever caught in a major event on or off Lake Okeechobee, he took the time to try and push how we need to save this place and how much this place needs our help. And it's true. And there's no denying that. And I'm not denying that. I make a living out here. I fight for it each and every day. But my buddy Chris Sherling says it all the time. We all know what it could be. We all know the state of this lake and what this lake should look like and what it could look like if, we'll just flat out say it, FWC and Applied Aquatics and stuff would just leave it the hell alone, which they're not going to because of the almighty dollar. And if the Army Corps of Engineers, and I'm not blaming it all on them, but if we could get water out of this lake, what could be, as good as it is now, what it actually could be if we were just to do everything right. But with all that being said, we can bitch and moan, but this lake still outfishes 95% of the country. It does, as far as a tournament lake goes. Um, and Chris has said that, and it's true. Maybe it's different, like perfect. Like I was talking about with Tharp, he said I wanted to make that big weight bite happen, and so did Brandon. And Brandon did catch a lot of big, he caught a lot of his weight flipping the big weight and punching mats and stuff. But it's just so hard to win an event out here that way anymore, um, just because of the state of the lake, and because those fish just not only do they not hold under those mats like they used to, which they do to a degree, but there's a couple of different factors as to why you can't go out and catch 30 pounds flipping an ounce and a half weight in a crawl on a mat anymore. A, because I think there's not that much of it. Okay. And then the stuff of it that there is, it's not positioned right, if that makes sense. Like when you look back when Brandon won out here in whatever year it was, and he had 104 or 106 pounds, I don't know what it was, over the course of 4 days, he had a good line of chopped grass and junk mats that was out in what you would call a staging area out in front of a spawning flat. So you had the guys that were behind him catching the fish actively spawning, whereas he was cutting them off not only as they were coming in and staging in that mat, but he was catching fish that were on their way back out and stopping to stage before going back out in the lake in those mats as well. And we don't really have anything like that. Most of our mats are just on the back hard line because we don't have any big reed heads or cattail lines or anything like that to hold those mats out off of the hard line anymore. So really all you're catching back there is just resident fish, and the big lake fish that are spawning aren't really coming in and using those back lines to stage or spawn. And you do catch some. Like I say, you need to have that big weight rod in your locker ready to go because it's a very good way to catch a kicker or two. But to go out and base your whole day around that is, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very hard to do. Whereas also back in the day when that was the thing to do, it might have been hard to catch a 30-pound bag on a chatterbait or on a speed worm or vice versa, which is more or less what you're doing now. So although the lake is not in great shape, it's also just different. And I know I'm going to have all kinds of people reaming me out in the comments. And listen, there's no one who wants this lake to change for the better more than me. I promise you. Half you guys that are going to bitch me out, you guys fish 2 tournaments a year out here. And you show up and just whine about the lake as you catch 11 pounds. And then you whine that someone caught one on a spinning rod and that should never happen. Where in reality, we all know that even when they're eating a popping frog or they're chasing a big, easy 30 feet to eat it, if you were to slow down and throw a wacky rig in those areas, you'd get more bites. Now, granted, most of the time, if the lake was in the shape it should be, you shouldn't be able to even get away with throwing a spinning rod because their vegetation's so thick. But again, that's a whole other story. And hopefully we get back there before too long. And, Scott and the people over at A-Flow are definitely trying. Raymond over at Roland Martin's Marina. I talk to Raymond quite a bit. He keeps me in the loop with everything he's doing. And I don't think he gets the praise that he should, because that guy is literally going to war, really actively trying and taking time out of his day, out of his weeks, being a city commissioner, being the general manager of Roland's Marina, but also really trying to fight for this lake. And it's because we care about it, and we obviously people are going to say we have biased opinions because our livelihood revolves around it, but it's more than that. I mean, I'll go get a different job. I mean, you know what I mean? I'll go figure out something to do. Raymond can go get something to do. All these other guides can, for the most part, go get another job. I mean, there's 8-year-olds making $18 million a year on YouTube reviewing toys. Okay, you can go get other jobs. But what it comes down to it is we really care about this lake. Like, I want my son to experience some of the things that I've gotten to experience out on this body of water over my shoulder here. Raymond's definitely one of the leading guys in that drive to get this thing fixed. And, the way I look at it also is people are really good at screwing up a good thing, but Mother Nature is going to win. And I truly think eventually, before too long, she's going to hit the reset button, and we're going to get old Lake Okeechobee back. I really do. I think something's going to happen, and that doesn't mean that we need to keep killing it. But either way, something. I think we're starting to get some progress. I think people are starting to open their eyes and listen, or open their eyes, and they're also opening up their ears and starting to listen to some of the stuff we have to say. So hopefully, before too long, we've got some major progress underway. But as for right now, like I said, it still just broke the all-time Bass Open record, which is insane. Not only this is what's crazy. Like I know there's a lot of debate and shit talk over forward-facing sonar. Okay, and I don't know what it is lately, but I guess it's because Lake Okeechobee is in the algorithm with, Scott had that 33 pounds, but and plus we just have the Toyota series here. So all these anglers are posting their YouTube videos and stuff, but my channel has exploded over the last like week and a half as far as views, comments. And I know that there's a lot of other people watching my videos that typically don't, because the amount of hate that I've gotten in my comments over the last week is insane. And I try not to read comments. I listen to Joe Rogan on that. Like, don't read comments. But for the most part, my comments are relatively all positive. People love what I have to say or love what I'm doing. I'm not saying they agree with everything I say, but they like my videos and stuff. And then it's sad how I'll have like 70 positive comments, and I take the time to respond to each and every one of you that have lifted me up and said like, man, I love what you're doing. I love the video. Congrats. Good job. Love following along. You teach me a lot. And then I get one dumbass who comments something just ridiculous, has no idea what they're talking about. And I give them the time of day and comment back to them, which I don't know why I did that. I had one guy comment on a video today that this is what's wrong with my generation, that I don't know how to drive a boat. Just real quick rant. I put up a video a while ago when the lake was low that if you're fishing in a boat lane and you see someone coming on pad, just scoot over and don't get mad if someone runs by you, because they're not doing it to be a jerk. They're doing it because literally some areas in the lake is nothing but flat rock. Flat rock. So if you lay your boat down off of pad, your lower unit is going to get crushed, your prop is going to get bent in, and you're going to be out a lot of money trying to not be a jerk to the guy who's fishing in the boat lane. Now, I'm not saying the guy fishing in the boat lane is wrong. That's not what I'm saying at all. Boat lanes hold a lot of big fish. I'm just saying if you're in a boat lane when the lake's low and you see someone coming, just troll into the grass a little bit. Don't worry about guarding your fish getting run over by boats, because they're in a boat lane. They're getting run over all the time. The fish do not care. So just move. And then also, the guy can't stop because it's going to cost him a lot of money. So he's probably going to end up blowing through what little bit of grass we have left. So in order to save the grass, just scoot in. And this guy went on a rant saying, my generation doesn't know how to drive a boat. If the guy's fishing, you need to go around him. And if my generation, and me included, wasn't so focused on learning my electronics, we would know this. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this gentleman has never been on Lake Okeechobee at all. He probably doesn't even own a boat. If he does own a boat, he probably has 4 graphs on his boat. And as he's bitching to a person who literally does not have a graph on his boat. I still have a hand control Minn Kota trolling motor. I don't even have a foot control. So, and then me being the stupid person I am, I ended up commenting back to this guy, which I don't know why I gave him the time of day. But it's just under the impression that people just love to talk on the internet when they really have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. So when it comes to forward-facing sonar, were a lot of people using it on these last few events out here? They were, absolutely. Do I like it? No. I feel like Lake Okeechobee is one of the few places where you can go and you legitimately don't have to use it. And it was funny, I was talking to some of the guys from BASS, and they were talking about how their co-angler numbers are down on all the events because a lot of these other events are going to be solely dominated by forward facing sonar. And if you're a co-angler in the back of a boat and you're just out floating in the abyss in open water and your boater is shining that thing on suspended fish out deep, you're almost just out of luck. You got nothing to throw at. Whereas here, if you're up in the grass, you could bomb a speed worm, a swim bait, a swim jig, a vibrating jig out, around cover it, and you can catch fish. And that's still true. And I get where that's coming from. And again, I'm not a forward facing sonar fan. I'm not. I obviously don't have it on my boat. Um, but I also don't think it should be. I mean, it's just the new thing. It's just the next thing of technology. But with that being said, what I do like about it is it shows you what's actually out there. I mean, you heard Scott saying how many giant fish were around his boat, and he moved 50 yards all day. And and talking to Matt and Nick, who fished the Toyota and were down here, it really shows how many fish are in this lake. Um, Talked to numerous anglers between the Toyota and the Open, and just talking about the waves of fish coming by their boat, how many fish they would see that wouldn't eat. You got to remember, there were 200 boats in the Toyota, and all those fish were caught, brought into the Rollins Marina, and then let go out right in front of Clewiston. And then all of these other fish from this Open are just all. We have so many fish in this lake, and the fish are all, for the most part, super healthy. I saw some fish that didn't look so hot. They were a little banged up, maybe older. But then you saw like Randall Tharp's 10-3, big fish of the tournament. That fish has probably never seen a lure before. Just fat, not a scale missing on that fish. I'm going to ask him where he caught it and what he caught it on. I don't know for sure yet. But so the fish population is healthy here. But that's one cool thing about the forward facing is it does show you what's really out there. And, and some of these fish, Scott could not actively see, but he saw them on his graph. And, it was a 20-minute, 30-minute ordeal to catch that fish, just making the same throw. And what it shows me is how many fish do we fish over in a given day out here on Lake Okeechobee that we don't get bit and we leave. I mean, I think there's just so many more fish here than we think. And, the one kid, I don't know where he was, but he said over the last 3 days, there were 6 people in a certain area, and he probably saw over 350 fish get caught. And I don't think that's exaggerated. I mean, with these kids being good with the forward-facing sonar and stuff, they could do that. They could see what's out there and catch these fish. And again, if the lake was low, see, you got to remember, guys, the lake is higher than it should be, typically is. So that allows you to get in these areas and get an accurate read with your forward-facing and catch these fish. But if this lake gets down to what we really want and get it lower, it's not going to play as much. But it did play this week. And I know that was a big part of Scott's success. But, Randall, he wasn't looking at him. I know where he was fishing. He caught a lot of his fish, pretty much every fish he caught, I believe, on a vibrating jig. He might have caught some on a swim jig. He took a big run at it. But what made Scott's, to me, is Scott's the local, right? But what a lot of people don't know is Scott does not fish this lake that much. He doesn't fish it very often. It's not like he's out here every day. It's not even like he's out here every month. He's got 4 kids. He's got a wife. He's always out filming TV shows on top of fishing tournaments and traveling on the Elite Series. So he doesn't, if you go back and watch his channel, he's not out here very much. He's not out here very often. Not to say he's never out here, but he's just not out here as much as a lot of people might think. And when it came to this event, when I said, and it's going to be a whole ordeal, but I didn't pick him because I thought I had a fairly good idea of an area he was going to fish. I did not think he was going to try and get into the biggest community hole on the lake and duke it out with those guys. But that's exactly what he did. The last big tournament he fished out here was our Roland Martin's Marine Series tournament, where we had the 20 bags over 30 pounds, and him and Hillary had like 29.97 or something. I believe he even said it on live. And he legitimately went back to that exact same spot in this tournament. Um, you know what I think he did was, I'm sure he practiced. He was in an unwrapped boat. He was kind of being sneaky, which I don't blame him. Super smart idea. And, I believe he went out and practiced for the 4 days and probably didn't find anything that special. So he just said, I'm just going to go duke it out with all these guys and just try to outfish them. And that's what's crazy. That's literally what he did. He just got out there and, it wasn't local knowledge. It wasn't a new secret bait, a secret technique. He just flat out outfished everybody. And when he came in with the 33, 9, whatever he had the first day, I was one of the few times where I actually cared about where someone was. I was just like, where is he? Did anyone see him? And I'm talking to people and I was like, I never saw him. Part of that was because he was in that unwrapped boat. No one knew about it, which is extremely smart. And then I started seeing pictures from Bassmaster.com, and I realized where he was, and I was like, man, he's right there with everybody. Next day, he backs it up with 25 pounds, which obviously is a far cry from 33, but at 25 pounds is still an amazing sack of fish. And this morning, me and Breezy woke up early, got the little one ready. We were heading up to Mike Krause's, going up to Okeechobee Fishing Headquarters for his customer appreciation day up there. And of course, I turned on live, and Scott was the first person. And I watched him for about 20 seconds, and I told Breezy, I said, he's got this tournament won. That's it. He's got it won. And the simple reason was, you're lying to yourself if you don't watch Scott Martin's YouTube channel. You're lying to yourself if you don't watch Scott Martin Challenge and watch him. He's Roland Martin's son, right? So he's very energetic. He's very like, oh, big one. Oh, every fit, he always jokes on himself. Every hook set is giant, big and bro, big and big and big and dude, big and big. And he's always he was just pulled down, not talking, just cool as can be. Just, my dog is trying to murder something outside. Stand by. My dog's in the kennel, but there was just something big. I don't know if it was a cow or a giant coyote running across the cane field. I don't know what that was. Sorry about that. But he was just, you could tell, and I was talking to people at the weigh-in, there's a sure deal when you look at someone who was dialed in and confident. And that's what he was. He was just, people were catching fish. I was watching Tharp went on a tear this morning. Brandon was catching them. Everyone was catching them, and Scott Martin wasn't. And not obviously he didn't know that these other guys were getting bit, but you have 33 pounds and you have 25 and you're in the lead and you want to get bit, and he just wasn't getting bit. And when he was, they were small, and he just didn't faze him at all. And when I saw that, I was like, he's dialed. He's dialed in. He knows what's going to happen. He knows he's not going to get a lot of bites, and he doesn't care. And he's confident and he's dialed in on what he needs to do and what's going to happen. And that's what was crazy. Like, there were 80 boats. The Toyota series, there were 45 to 50 boats in there for 2 days. The Toyota series leaves. The Bass Open guys are here. There were 40 boats in that spot from Sunday all the way through to Wednesday at noon because I was out and I saw it. I actually was in there Wednesday about 10 o'clock, and there were 40 to 50 boats in there. And then Thursday and Friday, there were 80, legitimately 80 boats in there. And he just fished slow and I mean, you can't say anything. He just legitimately outfished the entire field in the community hole, which to me is just, I think it makes his win even that much more impressive. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I have a pattern. I'm catching them flipping this jig on these points and these main lake points, or I'm catching them. I've got a sneaky hole where I can go and get 2 or 3 bites, going to be big ones. Then I'll go battle it out of the community hole. I mean, he just kind of rode it out and he just outfished everybody, which is crazy. I mean, I feel like he gets talked about as a big TV personality and a funny guy and this and that. But I mean, at the end of the day, he understands these fish. He grew up on this lake. He knows them, and he knows how these fish move. He knows how these fish pull in, which is funny when you look at like someone like Randall Tharp, and him. I mean, Randall doesn't live he does live in Florida now, but I think he's from Alabama. But they understand these Florida fish. And this is what I talk about when I say, when you come to Florida, or especially Lake Okeechobee, take everything you know about bass fishing and flip it upside down. And that's how you fish Lake Okeechobee. I mean, our fish just have their own, they're different. It's just Florida strain bass in general, but on Lake Okeechobee specifically, they're just different. And like Scott said today, like, when it gets tough, don't spin out and go start covering water. You fish slower. And man, like, I'm just going to flat out tell you, I don't think if I was in his position, I would have been able to do that. Because I make a living on this lake. I fish this lake every single day. And when it comes to a tournament situation, like, if I'm not getting bit, as opposed to flipping, right? There's times where, or even like a frog in the springtime, that's different. Like, it's like, all right, we're going to go flip. We've got 30 spots we're going to stop at today. We're going to go flip a jig in these spots, and we're only going to get 8 bites, but they're going to be big ones. That's different. But like in this time of year when these fish are spawning and stuff, it's hard. Like, if I'm not getting bit, I'll start moving around. And he just slowed down even more, watched his electronics, and just made slight bait changes. Didn't get spun out. Like he said, he saw local guys and guides around him catching fish. He wasn't getting bit. Just let it happen, and it worked out for him. So huge congrats to him. That one was, in my opinion, well earned for sure. That was it was impressive to watch. And he's in the Classic now. On top of that, again, going back to making that win special, he won it right here in literally his backyard. It was cool being at the weigh-in. I mean, all of his friends and family, his mom, his dad, I'm sitting there holding my son and right at the bump tanks, talking to Brandon, talking to Roland, Scott. I mean, they're all, there. So that's got to be a cool feeling to win it in front of your hometown. And not only just win it, I mean, blow the damn thing away. Blow it away and set all kinds of records, which, like he said, I was fishing with a purpose. He wanted to do it for himself. He wanted to obviously make the Classic and everything, but he wanted to win it for this lake. And that's why I like going to these weigh-ins. That's why I like, if you guys notice, like, if it's on Okeechobee, because I'm passionate about the lake. I love the lake. I want it. It gets a bad rap anymore. But they live here. These fish aren't dying. Our fish aren't unhealthy. Fish live here. Is it changing? Yes. Eventually, something could catastrophically happen and the fish stop being 8 and 9 pounds? It can. But as of right now, the fish are going to adjust. And I just think as fishermen, we need to adjust. But at the same time, while we're adjusting our fishing techniques and how we approach the lake, we need to approach fixing it back to the way it was, not for our sake. When it comes down to it, it's almost easier for us to catch them now because there's less places for them to be. But for the fish sake and the lake's sake and the wildlife sake, we need to try and uh, you know, bring it back. But pretty crazy. Um, Now I want everyone to kind of also picture this. I mean, Scott wasn't catching 30 fish a day. Far from it. He was catching very few. And all of these people that come and book trips with me, and I tell them, like, listen, we're trying to catch big ones. Like, there's dimes where we can go catch schoolers and stuff, but for the most part I kind of base my trips around, I want you guys to catch big ones. That's where you're coming from. That's where you're coming to Lake Okeechobee for, is you want to catch big bass. So when you're targeting big fish on this lake, a lot of times, like, you can be in a school of fish and catch 51 pounders and then catch a 7 pounder. That can happen. But when you're trying to catch multiple fish over 4 pounds, 4, 5, 6, 7 pounders, a lot of times you're not going to catch a ton. It's not what you're throwing. It's not you got to throw a giant bull shad swim bait all the time and a big glide and try to catch them. It's more or less where you position yourself and what you do throughout the day. And like I said, I mean, Scott was in the position to where these fish were going to not only come to him, but the bigger ones were going to be there, and he had them figured out. And so did Randall. Randall fished a spot, which I'm actually surprised he caught him there. I'm not going to name where he caught him, but I fished there a decent amount. I actually kind of just started fishing that general area this year. And it wasn't that he was catching them. It was like how he was catching them was a little different. But he was in a spot where he could have easily won the tournament. That's the thing. All these guys. I mean, it really just equates to what fish are coming to you, and who knows? I mean, if some of these other guys that were down on the south end, if there was a local like a Brandon, or we'll just call Randall a local, or a Scott in those areas, not to say they're better fishermen than those people. That's not what I'm saying. But this lake, like Greg Hackney said it perfect on live today. He said, what's so funny is we're watching the record be broken, but if you were to ask all 240 of those, or 200 boats that didn't make the top 10 in that event, they would almost say, he's like, I guarantee you half of them would say, I'm so glad we're leaving that lake, or leaving Florida. Because Florida, again, you take everything you've learned about bass fishing and you flip it upside down. That's how you fish this lake. And it burns a lot of people. Look at Brandon Polinick. He, in my opinion, is one of the best in the entire world in more ways than one. I mean, he's just incredible professional. He's an amazing angler, but he hates this place. It has his number. He doesn't hate it, but he just doesn't do good in tournaments here. And it's just because it's all little things. I went fishing with my buddy Chris the other day, and we just went out for a few hours. He came down to the south end. He's like, man, I'm going to the south end if you want to jump on the boat. He's been taking my money for years. And he catches giants pretty regularly. He's very consistent out here. And just, I'm very big at fishing with other people, learning and picking up small things. Like, there were I'm not going to say what he does, but there were little things I was watching him do. His boat position, what he's looking for when he throws the bait he wants to throw, how he works the bait. Some things were just different, a little bit different than I would maybe do. And he caught him. And I feel like that's something that everyone should do is fish with other people. I get a lot of weird looks from clients when I talk to another guide on the lake and I say, hey, if you're ever, I want you to come fishing with me, but if I'm ever booked, or if you ever just want to try something different, you should book a trip with him. And I get weird looks. Like, do you not want? No, I want you to come fishing with me, obviously. But I want to go fishing with that other guy. I want to go fishing with Jesse Mizell or Jared McMillan or Justin Morgan on the lake, or I want to go fishing with Tom Mann Jr. or whoever. There's a bunch of other guides out there that are good, because I might learn something. They might we might pull up to an area and I'll ask them straight up, like, you've caught fish here? I never fish here. And we might approach it totally different, or we might say we're going to Pelican Bay to flip, and I might pull out a jig, and they might pull out a spinner bait and throw a spinner bait where I would never think to throw a spinner bait. And you learn. Everyone looks at water different. Um, so, and especially down here, like the funniest things I get is like when I take people from all over the country and we lay down in an area, and the first thing they say is, "Man, this looks perfect for X." And that's, I've never caught a fish on that bait in that spot. Um, oh man, we're gonna crush them on a swim jig here, but I've never thrown a swim jig in and around this area. This is a popping frog spot, or this is a dragging a worm spot. And now again, going back to what I just said, there's times where I say, I don't catch them on a swim jig, but try it. And there's times where it doesn't work because of, again, this that small little weird Florida thing. But then there's times where they try it and it opens my eyes, like, holy crap. Going back to that burner worm thing, which is funny. I hate swimming a speed worm, a burner worm. I don't like it. And when I first started guiding, Tom Mann Jr. was sitting at the tiki bar, and he told me, he said, you just need to call Val and order them in bulk, June bug, burner worm. That's all you need. And the reason I throw it so much now is because I had my clients throwing it because I knew it would catch fish, but I didn't know it would catch fish that well. But the reason I would have them throw it is because it's one of the most versatile baits you can throw. You could dead stick it, you could drag it, you could swim it, you could buzz it. It's weedless. They could throw it in the bushes if they don't fish very much. They can do whatever. If they get a bite, the fish will hang on to it for a while, to the point where they might say, Cody, I think I have a bite. I could say, yeah, set the hook. They set the hook, whatever. But after 2-3 months of them using those baits, and I'm seeing what's coming in the boat, it makes me think, oh, I should probably use this more often when I'm competing and fishing. And that's what opened my eyes to it. So, yeah, I don't know. That was a little bit of a rant there. But my whole thing is always be open-minded in bass fishing. That's bass fishermen's biggest problem, is their egos. Um, they think they know everything, and we don't. We don't know anything when it comes down to it. And that's probably the biggest thing I would change. I was listening to Dave Mercer's podcast or something, and I think Brandon Polnick asked the question to the next guest, like, what would you do to better the sport of bass fishing? And I wish there was a button where you could there was no ego in the sport. Because I think that just hinders so much. I mean, bass fishermen, I don't know. It bothers me. I don't know. Like, I feel like we don't have enough companionship. Does that make sense? Like, I go, and I've said this before, like, try to go to every weigh-in, whether I'm in the tournament or not. Even if I'm in the tournament, there's times where we have a bad day, and Kelly might say, all right, let's go put her on the trail. No, it might be an extra 30 minutes, but I'm going to sit here and BS just so that whenever the winner gets their check or gets their trophy, I could shake his hand and say, good job, like, good job today. And I feel like, I don't know, it's just weird. Like, even today, I don't know Scott Martin like that, but I can't believe these guys weren't even just like, dude, like, almost shaking them. Like, you just set he set a record. He broke records today. And I'm very big like that. Like, if one of my buddies comes in with a 30-pound stringer, or catches a 10-pound, whatever it is, like, make them feel good, congratulate them, because even if there are guys that catch the dirty 30, it seems like every weekend, it's still special. It's still a big deal. And if someone's having an awesome day, like, I feel like people feel like it's not cool to congratulate somebody. I just feel like we need more of that in the sport. I feel like everyone's ego won't let them down, or lets them down, or won't let them loosen up, I guess you should say. I don't know. Or just talking to, I talk to bass fishermen every day in my life, and it just seems like they try to be too cool. And I just wish bass fishing wasn't cool, or bass fishermen didn't try to feel as cool as they do. And just because all we're doing is fishing. At the end of the day, I always joke with my saltwater buddies. They ask me like, why do you guys have to run 75 miles an hour in a boat? Why do you got to wear a ski mask or a motorcycle helmet when you're running your boat? Why do you got to use 65-pound braid? Why do you? And I always say, because we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to fish for a fish that doesn't fight. So you got to make it cool, you know. But that's the truth. I always say that joke when I do any little seminars or anything. Like, we've got the jerseys, we've got the go fast boats, we've got the wrapped boats. We use the heavy line, these gaff hooks, because we need to amp everything up, because at the end of the day, we're fishing for a fish that doesn't fight. But either way, that's about it. So again, huge, huge, huge congrats to Scott Martin. Say whatever you want. That win was very impressive, because again, I'm going to say it again. He didn't have a secret spot. He didn't have a new secret lure. He didn't have nothing like that. He just simply downright outfished everyone around him, which was crazy. Huge shout out to my buddy Brandon McMillan for making a top 10. That was awesome. Um, I wish he would have done a little better, but I'm sure he does too. But he beat 200 other guys, caught him the way he wanted to catch him. So that was cool. Randall, he almost got, he ended up in third. Awesome to see him back at bass as well. Listen, I don't have a stick in the or a word in the matter. I'm not a professional, but I'm a bass guy. I'm not the biggest major league fishing guy, but glad to see him back at bass. And he says, "Oh, I don't care if I make the elites. I'm just back here fishing for fun." He's competitive. He's going to try and win every open he can and try to make it back to the elites, I feel like. The young dudes, I don't even know all their names. I think Tucker Smith, and there was a couple other young guys. My wife said it today, like, all these guys are so young. And it's crazy. It's crazy to see. I mean, literally like 20 years old, 22 years old. And you guys can say all you want with the live scope, because it's video game fishing. They're out fishing the best in the world. I mean, they are. Yes, a lot of them are using forward-facing sonar and all that, but everyone is going to be within the next 2 years. Even the guys that are down talking it are going to have it. I won't, but I might. I don't know. You learn a lot from it for sure. And that's what's funny. I'm still ranting when I was about to wrap it up, but I hear all these guys say, like, can't you at least admit that, like, you learn a lot from it, like looking at it, and it's taught us stuff that we never ever thought of that these fish do, and people won't even admit to that. But coming from someone who doesn't have it on their boat, but when I get on people's boat who has it, watching the way these fish come in, how they swim into these spawning areas on Okeechobee, watching how many of them truly do come in a pack, watching how they set up on reeds, it's crazy. And even if you don't have it, just going out and seeing how these fish behave with it a few times will make you approach fishing without it better. So that's about it. I don't really have anything else to add. I'm sure I pissed somebody off in this video. I don't know how, but I guess that means I'm getting some traction on YouTube if I start getting some people hating. You can disagree with me. I really seriously mean it when I say I don't look down upon or get mad if someone doesn't agree with me. That's what America is. Like, I'm not trying to piss anyone off. I'm not saying what I'm saying is right whatsoever. But man, the hate in my comments lately I got hate on the last one that me, Matt, and Nick did, where I admitted right off the bat, this podcast is horrible. Nick had literally just fished 5 days in a row. Matt had fished, I don't know how many days. He fished he fished the 2-day ABA that he won, fished the ABA Open the next day on Sunday, got a check, then practiced for the Toyota, then fished 3 days of the Toyota. I mean, he was and we're all sitting here, and I worked every single one of those days on the water. So we're all sitting here just for like sunbaked and just half asleep. But people said they wanted to hear our predictions, so we did it. And people were bashing how awful this. I didn't say this was some big elaborate podcast. I hit the camera, turned my lights on in my living room, and we were all half asleep talking. People ripped that apart, said that we're ruining the industry. I'm not even in the industry. I'm a nobody. These other guys around me, they're Florida hammers, but we're not. We're not trying to ruin the industry. I don't know what the negativity in this sport is. I don't get it. It's crazy. I don't know how people need to go out of their way to be negative, whether it's in fishing and just on social media in general. I I, I really I love YouTube. I love content creators. I love a lot of the awesome content that gets put out. And I'm addicted to Instagram and scrolling on reels and stuff. I am. But there's part of me that like I want to just tell myself don't read comments on even like other people's stuff. Like I saw one the other day of a guy with a chest camera on. He flips a jig into a bush and he literally flips the jig, pulls off like a 3 feet of line, and as he lets go of the line, that slack line just jolts. I mean, just a toink, and he reels down and cracks this fish and pulls like an 8.5 pounder out of a tree in Texas. And it was just the coolest little clip. And I go to comment like, "Why didn't you set the hook?" as a joke, as he cracked her. And there were 5 comments saying, like, down talking the guy for setting the hook too hard. It's just, I don't know. I don't get people that don't like setting the hook hard. I just don't get it. But anyway, that's enough. I guess I'm gonna go. I might try to get out in the morning. We're supposed to have some really bad weather, but I might try to get out and film. I don't know. I gotta see what's going on here and see what little guy. Little guy was. We woke up at 7. We got up to Mike's, figuring we'd leave around noon, 12:30, and he'd nap on the way down to Clewiston. Well, he didn't nap, so he stayed up through the whole way in. And then as soon as he got in the car, he passed out. We put him down for a nap, and now it's almost his bedtime. So we're either, I don't know. I guess we got to wake him up and bathe him and get him ready for bed again. But he's probably going to have us up early, so we'll see. Either way, I don't know what videos are coming next. I'm trying to keep this content coming out to you guys, but I don't know what the next video will be. If you want to book a trip, I do have some dates available. I've probably gotten back to you by now, but there's some people I need to get back to about dates, but I've got a few dates open in February, but I believe I'm fully booked in March, I believe. And then April and May are kind of wide open, and May is when we had the 20 bags over 30 pounds, just saying. So if anyone wants to book a trip, give me a call. And I got to get I'm taking deposits to hold dates. I had a bunch of rigmarole, basically, just people. Listen, I love that people watch my videos. I love it. But I think what happens is there's people that are sitting up in the cold, in the snow, watching videos about us fishing in shorts and flip-flops in Florida. They text that they want a date, and you say, gotcha, sounds good, put them in the book, and 2 months go by, and you say, where are we meeting tomorrow? Where are you coming from tomorrow? And they call, oh, I'm still in Nebraska. I forgot I booked that. I'm not going to make it. So you got to call me, text me also. This is another big thing. I'm not antisocial. I'm not, but I am, again, I want everything in text so there's no misunderstandings. Text me. You can call me, but I'm probably not going to answer. Everyone knows that. That's the running joke. I will call you, but when it comes to like booking the trip, I would much rather text. Like, I want February 13th or whatever on a Saturday. That way I have it in writing. And there's no, I said the 12th and you had me down for the 13th kind of thing. So, but if you're looking to book trips, I want to take you out. I think it's going to be a very good spring. It's crazy. Spring's already almost here. It's going to get hot again, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready for the frog bite. I'm ready for the jig bite. I'm ready to catch some schooling on a trap. If you want to book a trip, my number, everything is in the description below. Give me a text, give me a call. I say I won't answer. You can call me and leave me a voicemail, and I will call you back. But I'm probably going to hang up with you afterward and say, I have you down for this date, and you have to reply back. But $100 deposit, and I will get you in the book. But other than that, Lake Okeechobee, I love you. She's banged up, but she's still out fishing a lot of the country. But we need to take care of her. We got to try and salvage what we can and get her back up, get the band-aids off, and get her looking healthy again. So appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate it. Like and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. I'm almost to 4,000 subscribers. That would be cool. Help me out. Subscribe to the channel or don't. And then I guess I'll see you guys on the next one. Tie lines and good luck out there.